All right. Okay. Evening, everyone. All right. In my last tutorial video, I mentioned that to be talk. The next video actually talk about layouts, and a simple description of layouts are simple. These are simply containers that hold controls. Like controls can be a button, can be a text, can be anything. So without further ado, let's get started. All right. Click on this icon or the book icon, and then you can click on resources. On resources you can find layout, or you can just search for it from the top. Layout. I need to bring the layout, click on it, and then you can click on create layouts. You can check it for yourself, but I won't actually show you many parts, but I'll just like do them actually. So yeah, that's the part that's very important though. Like you have to read through this, but nevertheless, let's just get started. Let's make it more practical. So call our app layouts. Okay, our app is here. I've made it now. Let's now edit it, and like I'll just start everything from the beginning, all right. So here's how it is. Firstly, before you run anything in Java, you actually have to make an on start function, and an on start function is the one that is called last on the in this DroidScript app. It's one that is executed as the last function. It's one that make that whatever you put in the on start will be shown in your application. So on start, okay, right, on start. Okay, so on start, the moment you call it, truth be told, nothing actually happens. It's similar to having an HTML tag. You can have the tag without the body tag, or an empty body tag means nothing until you put some content in the body tag. If you don't know HTML, try checking out HTML, because later, sooner rather than later, we'll be using HTML to design some apps. All right. So yes, that's that. All right. And now, as I earlier stated, a layout is simply a container of the controls, a container of maybe, let's say, some buttons, some text, some like the things that you normally see in an application. That's a container. Like it simply just holds the things for you. It's like it groups them, it groups the things together. So in this case, yeah, and DroidScript has got three types of layouts, and I'll explain every layout. The first layout that we have is that, or firstly, make it a variable, because we use its properties later on, its properties and methods. And by the way, every DroidScript control layout, they are all objects, so they have properties and they have methods. If you don't know what properties and methods are, better check out some JavaScript tutorials. And okay, without going through like tutorials, DroidScript has got this JavaScript part which you can just read, go on basics, then just read through. It's not that long. It's quite, it's something, but not that long. But you can just read it, then at least you have an understanding of what actually objects are, operators, yeah, what objects are, and how to go about with them. So yeah, I haven't here's a variable. As you all know, Java's variables, all right, Java's variables, they always start with either var or let or const. But if you don't declare a variable, that means if you don't yet declare it, that means Java assume that that's a global variable. That means you can access it anywhere in a document. Mind you, we're calling this variable, or we're assigning this variable within a function. So every time when you assign a variable, or when you declare a variable in a function, it becomes locally scoped, meaning that you can only access it in a function. But I don't want this to be accessed in a function, so I haven't put a var keyword. Other than that, you can assign it on the top of the document. You can do that. You can just call the var, then call it lay. then like that just declared it, and then here we're assigning it. But even though they're putting it, Java will still assume then do it for you. But yeah, it's good practice to remember, I mean, to put to assign, just to declare and assign a variable. But shortcuts are shortcuts. So yeah, use the app. The app is one that calls every property, or I mean every object in DroidScript, and then you can use now the create layout. Here's the side where it is, and okay, let me just remove everything here. We'll type everything, create, let me just hide this, create layout. And as I earlier stated, there actually, I didn't state this, but yes, there are 3 types of layout that DroidScript has. The first one is a linear layout, and that's the one that I'll talk about mostly. Linear layout, and it has options such as let's just put fill x, so that it fills the length, the width part of our of the screen. Okay, then you can close this. Then we give it a color. Let's just set its background color. This is a property that DroidScript has, and the color, let's just make it gray, and then the background gray. Okay, and then the last thing that we have to do is that we have just made a layout, but we haven't assigned it anywhere, so we actually have to put it in the app by using this function app.addLayout. Add layout simply puts your layout in the app itself. So add layout. Okay, so the name of the layout was called lay. Yes, and close it, then you can run it, then check out what happens. It hasn't shown anything because we haven't yet set anything in the layout. So the moment you set something, like example, is this just an example? Let's set a button. Button. Okay, let's just create button, then that. All right, then let's just add it to the parent button. I'll explain controls later, but for now just bear with me. Yes, yeah. Gray is not a good color. Let's find maybe blue. Let's use blue. Let's use blue, and voila, there is blue. It's only filling the containers width because that's what we've assigned it. But if we put also Control X and Y, it fills both the width and the height. In this case, the whole screen is filled in blue. So that's how you use the linear layout. And the linear layout, like for example, we have this controller, the button. Let's put another controller, maybe a text. App.text. Okay, and then we just create hello DroidScript. All right, and then we assign it, and we add it to the layout. Remember, we added the layout to the app, and then we're adding every controller to the layout. So don't forget these steps, they're very important. I've actually made a mistake. And it has crashed. Okay, but for now we'll just hopefully wait for this to continue to start working, hopefully. Okay, it has crashed for real. Let's close this and start again, because I code the layout, because I did the layouts to the layout, so DroidScript project was lost. Like, what are you trying to do? But now I think it will be back on track. Man. Okay. Let me just close my DroidScript project, then reopen it. Okay, reopen it, then try to run it, then okay, that's crashed. DroidScript project has crashed. Alright, hopefully you guys are having a great day, and this tutorial wasn't supposed to take this long, but unfortunately due to unplanned uncertainties that happened. So yeah, what has happened has happened. There's nothing you can do about it apart from accepting it and going with the flow. So let's continue editing it and make sure everything is okay, then try to run it. Then you notice the text just below the button. So here's now how you can differentiate this, but let me just put some, the screen as first. I can't move anything. Okay, now I can move this, but I can't slide it. Alright, so the text dot set background, let's just set the background of it, sorry, not background, back color. We use the same color, which is kind of pinkish, and then we'll set the text to be, the size of the text will be kind of big. Maybe set text size maybe to 30 pixels. So yeah, 30 pixels. Yeah, that's our text. But now the layout, the way the linear layout works is that it adds children vertically. It adds them vertically, and if you want to change the children, you can also check in the option part, then you can just assign the horizontal part of it horizontal, then it will make the children horizontally aligned. So in this case they'll be horizontally aligned, but without the option of horizontal vertical, it will assign children vertically. So that's one of the benefits that a linear layout has. And the other one is the frame layout. frame frame layout, you can just call it frame, and try to guess what happens when I run this code. Well, what the frame layout does is that it adds the last child on top, in fact in front of the first child. Like for example, in this case we have two children, which is the first child is the button element or the button controller, and the last child is the text controller. So it does that the first one will be behind the last one. So that's what it does. And the last one, which is absolute with absolute is similar to frame layout, but the only difference in this one is that you can assign specific positions of the controllers. In this case, let's try to assign, let's just run this. You see, like, it's just the same. DroidScript to be on top. Oh, okay, let me just go back to frame. I forgot to show you something else, you guys. Frame, when you have a frame layout, what you can do, right, is that on the add child, you can give it a position, like maybe let's say you give it a position of 2, and this one will give it, you don't actually have to do this, but in case you want to, if you think it can be helpful, you can try it. And guess what happens if it doesn't crash? Oh yeah, and something went wrong. Okay, I guess we're now back to the absolute layout. Okay, I'll show you something fancy, but I guess DroidScript couldn't allow me, but it's okay. The absolute, yes, it's similar to frame layout, but the only difference is that you can assign a specific position on the screen. And mind you, DroidScript, when it's assigning measurement, what it actually does is that it gives it according to their description of measurement. It says, like, in order to maintain the scale of graphical object in devices with different screen resolutions and orientations, all positionings and sizing values are given as decimal fractions of the screen width and height. For example, creating a button with a width of 0.5 would make the button half the screen width, and using a height of 0.1 would make the button a tenth of the screen height. You can, however, specify -1 or leave out the width and height parameters completely on your controls if you want the control to size according to its content. So what it means is that every time when we are trying to find a size of a particular thing, like when you're trying to when we're trying to assign a size, it will always be in a range of 0 to 1, meaning 1 it's the full width or the full height, and then 0 it's nothing. And where the moment you put -1, it will just take up the shape of the to take up the shape of the content. So in this case, depending on everything, we haven't assigned any value, I've left them blank. So here on the width part, we have left them blank. But for example, let's assume on the button maybe we put 1 as the width, and then the height maybe 0.5. Let me use numbers, 0.5. See what happens to the buttons. It fills probably the whole nearly the whole screen. In fact, half of the screen it has been filled by the button. So that's how you can measure things using this, the width and the height. But for more information, just try to check out the documentations because it's well explained. And yeah, that's that. And yeah, concerning now the positioning. On the positioning, let's the thing that I want to position is a text. The text, it has a method known as set positioning or position, which takes up the first parameter as the from the left, then the second parameter from the right, then the width and the height and the other options. Well, from the left, how much space should we leave? So in this case, let me just say we want to leave 0.4. And then from the top, how much space do you want to leave? Maybe 0.8. And the width, it's okay, I can leave it blank because I just want the width to occupy the space of the container itself, of the content itself. So as you can see, DroidScript is now below the screen because I've given it a different position. So in conclusion, there are 3 types of layouts. The absolute, or the first one, let me say the linear, the frame, and the absolute. The most frequently used layout is the linear, but if you want to have specific locations, specific sizes, you can go for the absolute. The frame layout is mostly used for gaming. Like for example, if you have a button, if you click a button, an image appears on top of the other. That's how you can use the frame layout. But in most cases, you find yourself using the linear and the absolute, and by far you find yourself using the linear mostly, because that's way easier and less complicated. But for more information, you can check out the same the references. Then you can go on layouts, and then on layouts you can check out other properties on create layout. You can check out other properties that it has. It will give you word descriptions, like to give you the best by far, and to tell you what other methods linears actually have. They have add children, and in the order of the children, it talks about the children as an object itself, like the way I was doing it, to tell you that you can even make it disappear, and that's gone. You can use the gone. The moment you click on gone, it will show you like hides the control without consuming any more layout space, as if it were never there. So yeah, it has many other properties, and you can just check out examples. And the beauty of DroidScript is that you can run the application without installing it. So you can check out the examples that they offer, then run them. Then if you're pleased with them, then you can just check them out, work on them, check out their coding. If you want, you can copy and paste it, but I'd recommend you code everything. Please don't forget to read the create layout. And the last part after the create layout is the add layout, how you add the layout with the layout that you've created to the actual application. And that's the part that I mentioned here, the last part, like adding the layout to the application. And everything that we're doing is part of the app object. Everything that we're doing, everything is it's either it's probably a method or it's a property of the app object. That's how DroidScript works. Everything is part of the app object. As you can see, the text was part of the app object, the button app object, the layout itself is part of the app object. And when you're adding the controllers to the layout, please assign the name. Here we added app add layout, meaning that we are adding to the app itself. But in this case, we added the button to the layout. Nanda we wrote add child, because we are not adding it to the app necessarily, or adding it to something that is already on the app, and that's the layout. It's already on the app, but we're adding it, but we're adding but we're adding the button to that thing which is already on the layout, on the app, which is the layout. Or in this case, I've given the variable known as lay. And you can also assign other variables if you want, like for example the btn, and the last variable which was our text variable. And in our next lesson we'll talk about controllers. I'll talk about specific controllers and I'll show you how they work. Thank you very much.